UFC 262 Oliveira versus Chandler takes place this weekend, and I'm going to go through the entire card, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main events, giving my prediction and breakdown for every single fight on the card. Now, last card, I did absolutely appallingly terrible, and I'm ashamed of myself and my behaviour. I'm going to redeem myself this week, starting with the early prelim opener of Sean Soriano versus Christos Giagos. Two veterans going at it. Sean Soriano used to be in the UFC, but suffered a bunch of back-to-back losses, got cut from the UFC. He's grinded his way back up against some selective opponents. We'll talk about that in a second. I am going to be going with Christos Giagos here. I was very impressed that on a day's notice, regardless of how bad Carlton Minus is, and maybe he should be minused from the UFC roster, he still beat a 10-2 guy in Carlton Minus that was on the come up, that was being trained, and he took it on a day's notice. I know he lost to Jacare close as well, but the Jacare close fight was actually pretty competitive, in all honesty, for Christos Giagos. I think I'm going to go with him getting the win over Sean Soriano here, because even though Sean Soriano did get a good win in his last bout against Noah Lahat, who's 13-4, that guy had 3 years off. He was an older guy. He's now 36 years of age, coming back after leaving Bellator, just jumping back into the regional scene. Don't know if I trust that win, to be honest with you guys, but he has got some decent wins other than that. But even still, I'm not going to be going with Sean Soriano here, stepping in on short notice and beating Christos Giagos. If Giagos can beat a 10-2 guy on a day's notice, give him a camp, there's going to be some problems, especially for guys like Sean Soriano. I'm going with Christos Giagos by unanimous decision. I reckon it'll be a competitive fight, though. I think Giagos will win the grappling exchanges and just land more on the feet and win himself a unanimous decision, 30-27. Moving on up the card to the next fight, which is Kevin Aguilar versus Tucker Lutz. I'm going with Tucker Lutz here. I've been less than impressed with Kevin Aguilar. He came into the UFC with a really, really good record and had some decent wins under his belt as well. That all crashed and burned immediately as soon as we put him in there against anyone of any competition level whatsoever. He beat some guys like Enrique Barzola, which is a good win to have, and he beat Rick Glenn as well, which is a decent win, and Joey Gomez by split decision. Like, he had a bunch of good wins in a row against good opponents. Damon Jackson, you've heard of as well. He's right now in the UFC. Tan Lee as well is a name you will have heard of. But I just don't know what happened to him recently, and I think maybe he's taken too much damage in his career because he just doesn't seem to take shots the same way anymore. Before, he used to take shots, come back, double down, and land big ones back. Fought Dan Ige, had a bit of a scrap there with him. Then in the Zubaira Tukhugov fight, he got TKO'd in the first round quite badly. Then against Charles Rosa, he just didn't seem like he was willing to trade enough that he need, and to lose to Charles Rosa, man. That's not okay to me. To lose to Charles Rosa in 2020 is just not acceptable behaviour, in my opinion. And I did pick Charles Rosa to beat him, and it was a split decision. I understand. But Charles Rosa, to lose a stand-up fight to him, and you're going in there against Tucker Lutz, who's a real good contender, Top Gun Tucker Lutz, very close fights, but he's been in scraps with a bunch of decent opponents, 5-0 guy in his recent bout. I feel like Tucker Lutz is going to go out there and beat Kevin Aguilar by unanimous decision. It's very close. I'm seeing a rising guy and a guy who's fading at the top and starting to slip a little bit. I'm going to go with the momentum of Tucker Lutz here against Kevin Aguilar. I just feel like Aguilar to lose a stand-up fight. I know, like, Charles Rosa has done some things in his career which just overperform in all ways. But, like, right now, watching Charles Rosa, actively, when I watched Charles Rosa against Shane Burgos, I thought, you know what? He looks really good here. He's having a real good night. He's firing on all cylinders. Watching him against Kevin Aguilar, it was just an embarrassing display of martial arts. And for the fact that Aguilar couldn't beat him, I'm not picking him here against Tucker Lutz. I'm going Tucker Lutz, unanimous decision, 29-28. Gonna be close. Moving on up the card, Gina Mazzani versus Priscilla Cachoeira. I'm gonna go with Gina Mazzani here. I like Priscilla Cachoeira. I think she's actually pretty decent. I know she got murdered by Valentina Shevchenko, and that has really skewered all of her stats. A lot of people are going with Gina Mazzani here. I think I'm going to have to go with her here as well. Being a little bit more active, but then again, she fought Rachel Ostovich, and what does that even mean? You know? She has a nice ass. She's 4-5. Like, you know, it's good stuff, I guess. But then again, Priscilla Cachoeira coming off a big win in the first round by uppercut KO against Shayna Dobson. But as the fights go on in her career, if she doesn't get that immediate finish that she's had on the regional scenes as well, then it seems to get a little bit south for her. It seems to get a little bit sour for old Priscilla Cachoeira as these fights go on. I think I'm going to predict a 29-28 unanimous decision here for Gina Mazzani. maybe taking a bit of punishment in the first round, and she has been finished in the first round before in her career, so maybe that's a good prop bet to make. Cachoeira in the first round, but for me, that's the only way that I can see Cachoeira winning. I'm not willing to put my prediction on the line for that, just one outcome possible. I'm going to go with the duration of the fight. I think Gina Mazzani's going to be better, have better cardio, and push her pace in those later 2 rounds and get herself a 29-28 unanimous decision over Priscilla Cachoeira. Moving on up the card, Jordan Wright versus Jamie Pickett. I'm going against Jordan Wright. I'm picking Jamie Pickett to get the TKO in round 2. I think I've got a good feeling about this one. Now, this is very close in odds. I believe they both are evens right now, and it's a bit of a pick 'em fight. I know a lot of the majority of people are going with Jordan Wright here. I think they're going with that because of... I don't know why they're going with that, to be honest with you. He has got some spectacular finishes, and maybe they're just looking at his record and seeing a bunch of spectacular finishes. But the opponents that he's taking on are absolute fucking garbage. Like, I know Jamie Pickett has had his losses and maybe does not have a pretty record like Jordan Wright of 11-1. But, like, Jordan Wright, coming off a bad loss to Joaquin Buckley where he got KO'd pretty badly in that bout. He got TKO'd earlier in his career as well against Anthony Hernandez, but that one got overturned to a no contest. That's something that doesn't show up that you need to look for. Ike Villanueva fight, he got the finish by doctor stoppage in the first round, but I'll tell you this, watch that fight again. He looks like he's slowing down so much in that fight. All of those big movements that he makes, the wheel kicks, the big knees, the big jumping kicks, the front kicks to the body, he seems like he slows down so much when it comes to the second round. I think I'm going to go with late second round TKO for Jamie Pickett. Late second round TKO. With Jordan Wright coming off a TKO loss, I doubt he's going to be as confident in the first round like he needs to be. And I think Jamie Pickett's going to go out there, take a bit of punishment, which he can do. The guy went to a decision with Punahele Soriano and won the second round against him. Like, Punahele Soriano is decapitating people in the UFC right now, and he's a real power puncher. I think if you can take the shots off him in the first round that Jamie Pickett took, showed some good toughness there, I think he'll survive the onslaught of Jordan Wright early, come back in the second round and finish Jordan Wright against the cage by TKO at the end of the second round. I'm going with Jamie Pickett. Moving on up the card, who else is there? Andrea Lee versus Antonina Shevchenko. Now, Roxanne Modafferi, man. They've both lost to her. What am I supposed to do with this, man? I'm going to go Antonina Shevchenko. God, man, I hate this. Women's flyweights is impossible, man. What am I supposed to do with this? You can't be Roxanne Modafferi. What are you even doing fighting for a career, man? Honestly, it pisses me off, man. I'm going to go with... I'm going to go with Antonina Shevchenko. That settles it. Just worried because, I don't know, it's women's flyweight, innit? So, like, what the fuck? You never know what's going to fucking happen. Like, you can beat all these contenders and finish them all in the first round, and then Shayna Dobson finishes you. And then you go in another fucking contender spree, and then fucking Roxanne Modafferi beats you. Like, it's just, I'm going with Antonina Shevchenko. I'll say unanimous decision, 29. I'll say split decision. 29-28, split decision for Antonina Shevchenko. Fun scrap back and forth. I just think she's a little bit more technical on the feet. And I flipped a coin as well, so I'm trying to act like I've got points here. But I think she actually is a little bit more technical on the feet. I just feel like Andrea Lee has the grappling advantage maybe. But I feel like Antonina Shevchenko, training with her sister, you got to get better, you know what I mean? you got to live up to that shadow of the sister that's over you. So I'm going to go with Antonina Shevchenko here. Decision, split decision, 29-28. Moving on up the card. Thank God. Let me get into some real fights. Lando Vannata versus Mike Grundy. I'm going with Lando Vannata, and it is shocking to me that everyone is picking Mike Grundy. I don't know why they're picking Mike Grundy, but the majority of people are picking Mike Grundy. I'm going with Lando Vannata here, man. I think he's going to go down and have a real good performance against Mike Grundy. And I'm going to call a TKO finish. I'll say a second round... I'll say a late first round TKO for Lando Vannata here. I think he's going to be real good in the featherweight division. Moving down, I know a lot of people don't like seeing someone move down a division after they've taken some damage up a weight class. He's still young in his career. People forget this about Lando Vannata, but I believe he's something like 29 years of age come the day of the fight. Like, He's still got some career ahead of him, and you've got Mike Grundy, 34, really hasn't lived up to much expectations that we had of him going into the UFC. He lost to Movsar Evloev in his last bout, and listen, Nick Lentz on short notice did better than him against Movsar Evloev. Now, I know Nick Lentz is pretty underrated, but still, his win that he has in the UFC against Nad Narimani isn't really a good win. In my opinion, like a little bit of an early stoppage. He got cracked in that fight himself, came back, rocked Narimani against a cage, and like had him wobbled a little bit, and they just stopped the fight. But either way, he finished Nad Narimani. I feel like, though, he's not going to be good enough in the grappling to keep Lando Vannata down, because we've seen Lando do real well with grapplers. He has really good takedown defense, really good scrambles as well. I don't see Mike Grundy being able to take him down and keep him there, so I see this being a stand-up fight between Lando Vannata and Mike Grundy. And I think Lando's going to be a big guy and actually look like a featherweight in there, like a real legit big guy for a weight class, and I think that's going to pay dividends for him, and I think he's going to get a TKO at the end of round 1 against Mike Grundy. I just don't like Grundy's stand-up too much, and I like Lando's in that first round, so I'll go with him by first round TKO. Moving on up the card, Matt Schnell versus Rogerio Bontorin. I'm going to go with Matt Schnell. Again, why are these people letting their managers manage their career? I could do a better job. You just got KO'd by Kai Kara France. If Kai Kara France isn't back in the cage, you should not be either. Okay, let's just say it exactly how it is. Matt Schnell, I understand, doesn't have the craziest power in the world, but I just don't see Rogerio Bontorin being able to do much, because Matt Schnell has actually got really, really slick jiu-jitsu. I think that's really his advantage in a lot of fights that he has. He submitted Jordan Espinoza, Lewis Smolka, who's O'Malley's next opponent, submitted him in the first round, up a weight class right now. Smolka's a bantamweight, but either way, I like his submission game, and the reason for me picking him here is because his submission game's so good, I don't see Rogerio Bontorin being able to submit him or dominate him on the ground or anything like that. I feel like Rogerio Bontorin also slows down in fights, so I think I'm going to go with Bontorin winning some positional exchanges in the first round, maybe getting a takedown, maybe landing some good shots, but then I can see Matt Schnell surviving the duration of the fight and winning the last 2 rounds, just picking at Rogerio Bontorin, tapping at him and just winning on strikes in rounds 2 and 3. I'm going to go Matt Schnell 29-28. Good scrap, looking forward to it, but I'll go with Schnell by unanimous decision, picking up the last 2 rounds after a close first round of grappling. Moving on up the card, Jacare Souza versus Andre Muniz. Now, I think Jacare's too old, and I think he's done. I think he's way too old, and I think I'm going to have to pick Andre Muniz, and I think I'm going to pick Andre Muniz by submission. Jacare made Kevin Holland's grappling look good. Okay. And that needs to be mentioned. You need to take in the words that I'm saying to you right now. Jacare Souza made Kevin Holland's grappling look good. Okay? I don't see him beating Andre Muniz here. If he wants to take this one to the ground, I think it's going to be big problems for him, because Andre Muniz, even though maybe does not have the level of expertise and skill and knowledge that Jacare has in jiu-jitsu, he simply has the athleticism to move fast on the ground. I think that's something Jacare does not have. I was watching Kevin Holland slowly set up a triangle on Jacare, and it looked like Jacare just had no idea what was going on until like 5 seconds delayed. Like, it was just a delayed Jacare. He's delayed right now. He's lagging in the cage. He's rubber banding, like someone's fucking DDoSing him in the middle of his fight. Like, it's a big problem in my opinion. I don't think he's mentally the same place he was in his earlier part of his career. I don't think he's physically in the same place either. He's coming off a brutal KO loss off of when Holland was on his back. Like, it's not a sign of a great chin, although he did get hit hard and it was a perfect shot and he obviously didn't see it coming. I'm probably going to go with Andre Muniz here, and I think he's going to catch Jacare on the feet. Jacare's going to shoot, and I'm going to go with Andre Muniz by armbar. First round. Like and subscribe. No, there's more, sorry. That wasn't my big finale, but I'm going with Andre Muniz by armbar in the first round. I believe in him. Moving on to the main card, Shane Burgos versus Edson Barboza. I'm going with Hurricane Shane Burgos, okay? I think if you want to make good money, bet on a draw. Because there's a good chance that Barboza sneaks those first 2 rounds and gets 10-8'd in the third. I think Burgos is going to sneak the second round, okay? Because Barboza does slow down in his fights. The second rounds are always way closer than the first one. Shane Burgos has got, in my opinion, the best chin maybe ever. Like, one of the best chins you will find he took shots off Josh Emmett and he was laughing about it as it happened. Maybe his chin is now going to be very unfortunate because of that Josh Emmett bout. Who knows? I'm going to go with Shane Burgos here, the younger guy. He's got good kicks. He can take kicks as well because he's a Tiger Schulman guy. A lot of those guys can take good calf kicks and dish out good calf kicks back. I think that's going to give him a good advantage here against Edson Barboza. Very good with the kicks. It's just whether or not he took too much damage against Emmett, but he was trying to return in January. Now he's returning in May. That gives him 11 months off. I like that he's taken that much time off, in all honesty. The Josh Emmett bout was an absolute war. Edson Barboza is now 35 years of age. Shane Burgos is 30. These things do matter. I feel like, Shane Burgos has a reach advantage, so that's going to help him out here as well. Barboza's not going to be able to catch him from awkward angles that he doesn't expect. And I think Barboza, who looks like a big featherweight moving down, is going to look a little bit small next to Shane Burgos, who's one of the biggest featherweights in the division. And I think Shane Burgos is going to go out there, lose the first round, maybe get cracked a couple of times on the chin, eat them well. Barboza's going to see that, and that's going to start playing on the mental side of Edson Barboza. He's hit this guy with a bunch of big shots. He's not gone down the same way Makwan Amirkhani went down, because we saw in Shane Burgos, Makwan Amirkhani, how good Burgos is in comparison to Makwan. We saw Shane Burgos come back in the later rounds against Makwan, where we saw Makwan Amirkhani on short notice make a tiny bit of a comeback against Edson Barboza in those later rounds as well. I'm going to go with Shane Burgos. I think his conditioning's too good. He'll get into a bit of a scrap early and set a very high pace with Barboza in the first round. And I think in the second and third, the second round's going to be close, but Burgos is going to edge it. And I think the third round might be a 10-8. So I'm going to go 29-27 for Shane Burgos here. If you want to make some money, put some on a draw, because Barboza might edge the second round. But I'm going to go Burgos, 29-27. Moving on up the card, Katlyn Chookagian versus Viviane Araujo. I'm going to go with Katlyn Chookagian here. I think she's extremely underrated. I know she lost to Valentina Shevchenko, but first two rounds against Valentina Shevchenko, she did okay. Like, she didn't get... I know she eventually got finished, but she didn't get completely destroyed start to finish in the bout. Like, she had some moments against Valentina Shevchenko where she'd land ace shots. Like, Shevchenko did destroy her eventually in that third round, but that was like, the first two were okay, considering Shevchenko's opponents. Like, she did okay compared to the others. I like that from Katlyn Chookagian. I know she lost to Jessica Andrade by body shot. I don't see Viviane Araujo being able to body shot TKO her. I don't see her being able to finish Katlyn Chookagian. Araujo has not had a finish since Alexis Davis, and that was overhand right. Or no, not even Alexis Davis. Before that, 2019, Talita Bernardo, 6-3. I don't know how she was ever in the UFC, but even still, she hasn't had a finish in a while. I don't see constant, reliable finishing ability. She's got good stand-up, really good stand-up. I think Chookagian's got good grappling, really good range as well on the feet, which I think is a problem for a lot of these women's divisions. She's so tall as well, so even though the reach is very similar here, 68-on-68, the kicks from Katlyn Chookagian, the movement of her, I just think she's too long and lanky for some of these other women's flyweights, and I'm going to go with Katlyn Chookagian, winning some grappling exchanges, winning some striking exchanges, and I'll say it'll be a 29-28 fun scrap, but a unanimous decision to Chookagian. Moving on up the card, Jack Hermansson versus Edmen Shahbazyan. I'm going with Jack Hermansson here. Shouldn't really need to explain myself. Now, maybe Edmen Shahbazyan in his time off has completely renovated himself and changed the way he is as a person. Maybe. I'm not betting on it, though. You know what I'm saying? There's a good chance that he could go out there and catch Jack Hermansson in the first round. Does Hermansson get chinned immediately? Like, even Cannonier had to wait and really break down Hermansson first and catch him in that second with a big shot, and that was a TKO finish. I don't think we're going to see Jack Hermansson get finished in the first round. And if I don't see that, I see Jack Hermansson eventually getting Shahbazyan down to the ground. Shahbazyan starting to slow down a little bit, because we should have seen this coming a long time ago. But Edmen Shahbazyan was very good in the first round in a lot of his bouts. And then there was that Darren Stewart performance that really wasn't the best in his career. And it was a split decision, and he really struggled as the rounds went on with his cardio. And we saw that with Derek Brunson as well. I think I'm going to go with a second round submission for Jack Hermansson. I think they're both going to be scrambling in the second round. Shahbazyan's going to be panicking to get back to his feet. And I think as he does, I can see Jack Hermansson getting his arm in guillotine choke, circling around while Shahbazyan tries to stand up on all fours and just latching in that choke in the second round. I'm going to go second round submission for Jack Hermansson with a bit of a beatdown with ground and pound before that as well. And Shahbazyan's just desperately trying to get up to his feet and he gets submitted. Terrible matchmaking. Shahbazyan is not ready, in my opinion, for top level. They should have seen this. Why they made this fight, I have no idea. Hermansson's tough as they come. Survived Vettori. Survived other guys in the division that have tried to knock him out and finish him. I like Jack Hermansson's chances here. I think he will get this one done. He's dog tough. Great cardio. Broke his face in the first round of the Marvin Vettori fight. And went into that fight with a broken toe as well. And still went 5 rounds hard. I'm going to go Jack Hermansson. Second round submission. Moving on up the card. Tony Ferguson versus Beneil Dariush. I'm going with Beneil Dariush. Tony. What happened, man? Such a sad... I'm going to go with Beneil Dariush, man. There's a thing that happens when a guy that's a bit older starts losing to people and you get a bit of removal from all of his wins. You start looking at the wins that... look at the wins that Ferguson does have. Okay? Where are they? Donald Cerrone. Pettis just lost to Clay Collard. You know what I mean? Cerrone just lost to Alex Morono. TKO'd in the first round. And that was competitive with him and Ferguson. Kevin Lee. A little bit of a slip as well. The Dos Anjos win holds true. And maybe that could have been a matchup they should have made right now. Rather than this one. I just think Beneil is like one of the new generation. If you look at Beneil's wins... Drew Dober, like he's got really good wins. Diego Ferreira, it was a close fight, but he clearly won the fight. I don't know why it was a split decision. Scott Holtzman is a good contender. Jacare Close is a good contender, and they're all suffering the same fate against Beneil Dariush. He's good under chaos, which is actually a very key thing that you need to have when you're going up against Tony Ferguson. I like that Beneil Dariush kind of thrives under the chaotic situations of a fight whenever things get messy. Dariush seems to do better whenever things get messy. Against Edson Barboza earlier in his career, Beneil Dariush, until the knee KO, was outstriking Barboza easily in their fight. He's very, very good, very underrated. I've picked him every step of the way so far in his rise over the past 5 fights, I believe it is. And I think I'll pick him again here against Tony Ferguson. I cannot pick a Tony Ferguson fight to save my fucking life. Every single time I pick against him, he wins. Every single time I pick for him, he loses. But I'm going to go with Beneil. I like his chances. I think he'll go out there, land some good shots on the feet, get some respect, and I think he'll just hold Ferguson in a half guard. I can really see that happening. Him holding Ferguson in half guard and just landing total strikes throughout the entire time. He basically got a warm up for Ferguson against Diego Ferreira, and Ferreira might be like a better Ferguson. I don't know, man. I think he's just getting a bit old. I don't like that he's going over to Freddie Roach to tighten up his boxing. I think I liked the unorthodoxy of Tony more than his... I like him being weird. I don't know why he's tried to normalize himself. I'm going to go with Beneil Dariush. More power, good cardio, good chaotic understanding, I guess is a thing I can say, and also good grappling. I think that the myth of Tony Ferguson's jiu-jitsu is kind of slipping a bit in his old age. I'm going with Dariush by unanimous decision. I'll say 29-28. Maybe Ferguson makes a bit of a comeback in round 3, but he doesn't do enough to win the fight based on it. But maybe Ferguson wins the 3rd round. I'll go Dariush for the first 2, though. Moving on up the card, Charles Oliveira versus Michael Chandler. I'm going to go with Michael Chandler here. I really do believe in his chances. I like Charles Oliveira's chances as well. I am not sleeping on Charles Oliveira. A lot of people are picking Charles Oliveira. He's the favourite in this fight. He deserves to be. He's a savage. He's had great performances. Don't know how I feel about the Ferguson one in retrospect. Maybe that's not one that really tells me you're the best in the division. But either way, I'm going to go with Michael Chandler here. I think he's going to get a KO in the 1st round. I believe in him. He's a ball of energy. I also think he's on roids. I know that is a silly accusation to make, but what do you know? He's the only guy who adopts someone, and what do you know? He's the most jacked guy in his division, and crazy explosiveness out of nowhere, and he can't have kids. What do you know? Something going on with his hormones. Who knows? I don't know what's going on with his hormones. Either way, just weird how the only jacked guy has to adopt a kid. That's all. It's all good, though. He's a jacked guy. He's extremely explosive. I'm factoring in the possibility that he might be on roids into my prediction. I don't care what you guys think. I'm putting it in there. He went out there against Dan Hooker, and I know that Dan Hooker did just fucking circle round here to stand up right into the punch the entire time, circling around the cage, basically asking to be KO'd. But I believe that Oliveira is going to suffer the same fate, and I don't think it's Dan Hooker that was the problem. I think it's Chandler being such an imposing threat. He can finish you with one punch. Not a lot of lightweights have that ability, and I think it changes the way these other lightweights fight. And I think Oliveira is going to be on the back foot early. He said he's going to KO Chandler in round 1. I don't see him KOing Chandler in round 1. I think his chances are to finish Chandler by second round, third round submission, or obviously later rounds than that. But I think if he does win, it will be by second round, third round submission. I think in that first round, Chandler's going to be too mentally strong, too switched on early, and I think he'll just lead the dance. He'll charge forward, go for big shots, not worry about what Oliveira is going to throw back, and I think he'll catch Oliveira just by being so confident in himself. In all honesty, it seems that way. He switched on early, didn't care what you're going to throw back. He's going to push you backwards. He's going to make you cover up against the cage, and he's going to be the one dictating the pace. I'm going to go with Michael Chandler in the first 2 minutes by a TKO finish. I think he's going to catch Oliveira. Oliveira does not deal well when he does get hit by big, powerful shots. Every single time he is hit by a powerful shot, he reacts in a negative fashion. I think he'll get hit by a powerful shot by Chandler, and when he does react in that negative fashion, I think he'll eventually get put away. And I think Chandler's going to get this one done. I'll say big right hand straight on the chin as Oliveira goes for a front kick. Chandler catches him whilst Oliveira goes for it. I think that'll be like the start of Yuri Prohaska, Dominic Reyes. Oliveira will start backing up against the cage because he's been hit hard. And I think Chandler will finish him off and get the TKO win and be the lightweight champion. That is fucking crazy how this division has fallen from grace. All good though. Like and subscribe. Click that button up there. Toodle pip. I'm going Michael Chandler, round 1, KO. Goodbye.